The research station hung like a small metal bubble against the endless black of space. Inside, Jae-hwan Park stared at screens filled with complex data, his fingers moving quickly across holographic interfaces. Outside the thick windows, stars flickered silently, watching a story about to unfold. Jae-hwan was different from most researchers. Where others saw dead ends, he saw possibilities. Where other scientists gave up, he kept pushing. His dark eyes scanned rows of information that most would consider boring and useless. But Jae-hwan knew better. The station itself was nothing special. It orbited a small, forgotten sector of space that most galactic races didn't care about. Humans had been given this location because no one else wanted it. The larger alien civilizations saw humans as a nuisance, loud, unpredictable, and frankly, not worth much attention. A notification blinked on his main screen. Another report from the Galactic Council had arrived, and Jae-hwan couldn't help but smile. These reports always described humans in the same way: unstable species, potential security risk, requires monitoring. He remembered the lectures from senior researchers. Humans are too emotional, they would say. They don't think like rational beings. They're reactive, not strategic. But Jae-hwan saw something different. Humans were adaptive. Humans were creative. And most importantly, humans never gave up. The current project was something special. Jae-hwan had been collecting data on alien communication patterns, technological interactions, and strategic responses for years. While other researchers focused on specific technologies or narrow research areas, he was building something much bigger. A holographic map flickered to life. It showed multiple alien civilizations: the Kyrian Collective, the Zorn Empire, the Nexus Confederation. Each was represented by a different color, with complex lines showing their interactions. Humans were barely visible, a tiny blue dot almost lost in the massive network. But Jae-hwan knew appearances could be deceiving. His computer began processing a new set of data. Complex algorithms ran through millions of communication logs, looking for patterns that no one else had seen. Most researchers would have fallen asleep watching these calculations. Not Jae-hwan. A small alert popped up. Something interesting had been found. The communication patterns of the Kyrian Collective showed a weakness. They always responded to threats in the same way. Always. Their military strategies followed a predictable pattern that they believed was perfect. But to Jae-hwan, it looked like a massive blind spot. He leaned back in his chair and took a sip of coffee. The liquid was old and slightly burnt, but he didn't care. His mind was racing with possibilities. Humans have been called many things by alien civilizations: pests, troublemakers, unpredictable children playing with technologies they didn't understand. But Jae-hwan saw something different. He saw potential. The research station's communication system blinked. Another message from Earth arrived. Most would consider it routine: updates, instructions, standard communication. But Jae-hwan saw it differently. Each message was a piece of a larger puzzle. Outside, a small asteroid drifted past the station's window. It was a reminder of how small they were in the massive universe. But small didn't mean weak. Small could mean something else entirely. Jae-hwan's fingers moved across the interface again. He was building something. Something that would change everything. The alien civilizations thought humans were insignificant. They were about to learn how wrong they were. A final calculation completed. The screen filled with a complex web of connections, showing relationships between technologies, communication methods, and strategic responses. Most would see chaos. Jae-hwan saw a blueprint. The universe was about to get very interesting. The communication room buzzed with tension. Seong-min Kim stood perfectly still, watching the massive holographic display that showed the recent encounter between humans and the Kyrian Collective. His fingers tapped slowly against his datapad, recording every single detail. It had started as a simple border patrol. A small human exploration vessel, nothing special, had entered a sector that the Kyrian Collective considered their territory. most species would have immediately turned back or faced destruction. But not humans. The Kyrian ship was massive, a dark metal structure that looked more like a floating fortress than a spacecraft. Its weapons could destroy most smaller vessels in seconds. The human ship was tiny in comparison, looking almost like a small metal insect next to a huge predator. Communication logs showed the entire interaction. The Kyrian commander's voice was cold and mechanical. Unidentified human vessel. You have entered restricted space. Prepare for immediate termination. Most species would have panicked. Most would have surrendered or tried to escape. The human captain's response was something else entirely. We're conducting a standard scientific survey, the captain had said calmly. Our navigation systems indicate this is neutral space. The Kyrian commander didn't care about explanations. Standard procedure was clear. Any unauthorized vessel would be destroyed. The massive ship began charging its primary weapons. In most encounters, this would be the end of the story. But not this time. Seong Min watched the recording again. The human vessel didn't run. It didn't beg. Instead, it did something completely unexpected. The small ship began to emit a series of complex signal patterns. To the Kyrian ship, it looked like random noise. But it was anything but random. The Kyrian ship's systems began to glitch. Weapon controls flickered. Navigation became unstable. For a few critical moments, the massive warship was completely confused. The human vessel slipped away. Incredible, Seong Min muttered to himself. He had been tracking these interactions for years. Each encounter was another piece of a larger puzzle. The alien races saw humans as a nuisance, but nuisances could be dangerous. His datapad pinged. Another report came in from the Galactic Council. They were discussing the incident, of course. Their language was always the same. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were a problem. Humans needed to be controlled. Seong Min smiled. They had no idea. The communication room was filled with screens showing various alien communications. Most researchers would be overwhelmed by the amount of information. But Seong Min saw patterns. He saw connections that others missed. The Kyrian collective would report this as a minor incident, a small human vessel that got lucky. They would increase border patrols. They would create new regulations, but they would miss the most important detail. Humans had just shown they could disable a massive warship without firing a single weapon. Outside the research center's windows, Earth looked peaceful, a blue and green planet that most alien races ignored. They saw a young species, a species that was still learning, a species that wasn't a threat. Seong Min knew better. He began compiling his report. Every detail mattered. The specific frequency of the signals, the exact moment the Kyrian ship's systems began to fail, the precise language used in communication. Other researchers might see this as boring technical work. For Seong Min, it was a weapon. The Kyrian collective thought they had won. They thought the human vessel was just lucky. They had no idea that every single interaction was being studied, analyzed, prepared for. Humans were learning, and they were learning fast. The datapad blinked. Another message came in. Another piece of the puzzle. Seong Min continued working, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. The universe was changing, and most species had no idea. The laboratory hummed with energy. Young-ji Lee stood in the center, surrounded by screens that flickered with complex patterns of light and data. Her hands moved quickly, adjusting holographic interfaces that seemed to dance around her. Most people would look at the screens and see nothing but chaos. Young-ji saw something else entirely. She was working on something revolutionary, a neural network that could do something no other species had ever achieved. It wasn't just about processing information. It was about understanding it, predicting it, adapting to it faster than anyone could imagine. The current project focused on alien technological patterns. Each civilization had its own unique way of designing technology. The Zorn Empire used quantum-based systems. The Nexus Confederation relied on biomechanical interfaces. Most researchers would spend years studying just one of these systems. Yunji was studying all of them. A holographic model of an alien communication device appeared in the center of the room. It looked like a twisted piece of metal, with strange curves and impossible angles. To most, it would seem like a random piece of technology. But Yunji saw its logic. Her neural network began to work. Lines of code moved faster than human eyes could follow. The alien device's internal structure became transparent. Its communication methods, its weakness points, its core operating principles, everything became clear. "Fascinating," she muttered. The computer beside her blinked. Most researchers would have missed the small signal, but Yunji caught it immediately. The neural network had just learned something new, something unexpected. Outside the laboratory, the world continued as normal. Alien races continued to ignore humans. They saw them as a young species, unpredictable, chaotic, not worth serious attention. They were making a massive mistake. Yunji's latest breakthrough was about adaptation, not just understanding alien technology, but predicting how it would change. Most species designed technology with fixed patterns. Humans were different. Humans could change. Humans could adapt. The screens around her showed multiple alien technological systems. Each one was being analyzed, broken down, understood. It wasn't just about copying technology. It was about understanding the logic behind it. Another breakthrough came. The neural network had just predicted a potential technological development for the Curian Collective, months before they would actually develop it. Most scientists would celebrate such a discovery. Yunji just continued working. Her computer continued processing. More data flowed in. Communication patterns, technological designs, strategic approaches. Each piece of information was another puzzle piece. Humans had always been good at one thing: learning quickly. Where other species saw fixed rules, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw limitations, humans saw challenges to be overcome. The laboratory's lights flickered. For a moment, the holographic displays showed something strange, a pattern that didn't make sense. Most would ignore it. Yunji paused. Those unexpected moments were always the most interesting. Her fingers moved across the interface. The strange pattern began to take shape. It wasn't a mistake. It was something else. A potential vulnerability in alien communication systems that no one had ever noticed before. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Alien civilizations continued their political games. They had no idea what was happening in this small laboratory. Humans were learning, and they were learning faster than anyone could imagine. The neural network completed another cycle. More data processed, more connections made. What looked like chaos to others was becoming a clear picture to Yunji. The universe was about to change, and most species had no idea. A final calculation completed. The screens around Yunji went silent for a moment. Then, they erupted with a complex web of connections, showing relationships between technologies that no one had ever seen before. Most would see confusion. Yunji saw a blueprint for the future. The room was small, dark, filled with computer screens that showed nothing and everything at the same time. Ta-Hien Park sat in the center, his fingers moving across multiple interfaces with a speed that seemed impossible. This was not an official research center. This was not a government facility. This was something else entirely. An underground network. A hidden system that most alien races knew nothing about. Ta-Hien was building something big, something that would change everything. Communication systems of alien civilizations surrounded him. The Curian Collective's private channels. The Zorn Empire's military networks. The Nexus Confederation's diplomatic communications. Most would see this as impossible. Ta-Hien saw it as a challenge. A small alert blinked on one of the screens. Most people would have missed it, but Ta-Hien caught it immediately. The Curian Collective was planning something. A military movement. a strategic repositioning of their fleet. Information that was supposed to be completely secret, but secrets were becoming harder to keep. Tai-Hyun's network was unlike anything the alien races had seen before. It wasn't about breaking into systems. It was about understanding them, predicting them, moving through them like water. Another screen showed a different view, communication patterns of various alien civilizations. Most would see random data. Tai-Hyun saw a story, a complex, moving story of power, weakness, and potential. The room had no windows, no clear indication of time. But Tai-Hyun didn't need windows. He had something better. A view into the most secret parts of alien civilizations. A message came through. Encrypted. Complex. To most, it would look like random noise. Tai-Hyun smiled. He had been collecting these messages for years. Each one was a piece of a larger puzzle. Each communication was another weapon in a war that most species didn't even know was happening. Outside, the world continued as normal. Alien races continued their political games. They had no idea what was happening in this small, dark room. The computer systems around Tai-Hyun were not standard. They were something else. A mix of human creativity and technological understanding that no other species could match. Another alert. The Zorn Empire was moving troops. A small movement. Something that would go unnoticed by most intelligence agencies, but not by Tai-Hyun. His network continued to grow. Slowly, carefully. Each connection was another weapon. Each piece of information was another advantage. Humans were building something. Something big. A final system check completed. The screens around Tai-Hyun showed multiple alien communication networks. Each one was being watched, analyzed, understood. Most would see confusion. Tai-Hyun saw opportunity. The underground resistance was growing. Slowly, carefully. Most alien races had no idea, but they would soon. Another message came through. Encrypted, complex, a communication that was supposed to be completely secure. Tai-Hyun's fingers moved across the interface. Another secret discovered. The universe was changing, and most species had no idea. A final calculation completed. The screens went silent for a moment. Then they erupted with a complex web of connections, showing relationships between alien civilizations that no one had ever seen before. Most would see chaos. Tai-Hyun saw a blueprint for the future. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Alien civilizations continued their political games. They had no idea what was coming. The stars were silent. Space stretched out like a black canvas, waiting. Hyunwoo Choi watched the massive holographic display. Red markers showed the approaching Kyrian collective fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons. They were coming to end human resistance once and for all. Most species would have been scared. Humans were something else entirely. They think this is a final attack, Hyunwoo said quietly to himself. His fingers moved across the control panel. Each movement was calm, calculated, nothing like the panic most would feel. The Kyrian fleet looked impressive. Massive battleships that could destroy entire colonies in minutes, weapon systems that could break planets. They had been planning this attack for years, a decisive strike to remove humans from the galactic map. They had no idea what was coming. Screens around Hyunwoo showed multiple data streams, communication networks, technological systems, strategic movement patterns. Most would see chaos. He saw an opportunity. The first wave of Kyrian ships approached human colony borders. Their communication channels were full of confidence, excitement. They believed this was going to be an easy victory. They were wrong. Hyunwoo pressed a single button. Nothing seemed to happen at first. The Kyrian fleet continued its approach, weapons charging, ready to destroy everything in their path. Then things started to change. The first ship's systems began to glitch. Navigation controls went crazy. Weapon systems started firing in random directions. One massive battleship suddenly turned and began shooting at another Kyrian vessel. Confusion spread quickly. It wasn't a direct attack. It was something much more interesting. The human resistance had been preparing for years. They didn't just understand alien technology. They could control it. More ships began to fail. Communication systems went silent. Navigation became impossible. The massive Kyrian fleet that looked so powerful just moments ago was now falling apart. Hyunwoo watched carefully. Each movement, each system failure, everything was planned. The Kyrian commanders tried to understand what was happening. Their communication channels were filled with panic, fear, confusion. They had never seen anything like this before. Humans had been collecting information for years, learning, understanding, preparing. Now it was time to show what they could do. More ships began to fail, not destroyed, just disabled, turned into massive metal boxes floating in space, unable to move, unable to fight. The invasion that was supposed to end human resistance was falling apart. Hyunwoo's fingers continued to move. Each press was another strategic move. Another system disabled. Another weapon turned off. The Kyrian collective had thought humans were weak, a small species that could be easily removed. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Entire sections of the fleet began to go silent. Weapons systems failed. Navigation controls disappeared. Communication networks collapsed. It wasn't destruction. It was something much more interesting. Complete control. Hours passed. The massive Kyrian fleet that had looked so powerful was now nothing more than a collection of floating metal boxes. Disabled, confused, defeated. And they hadn't lost a single human ship. Hyunwoo leaned back. His work was done. The stars continued to shine. Space remained silent, but everything had changed. The Kyrian collective had come to end human resistance. Instead, they had shown the universe exactly how dangerous humans could be. A final system check completed. The screens around Hyunwoo showed the entire disabled fleet. What looked like a defeat was actually a complete victory. Most would see chaos. Hyunwoo saw a message. Humans were not going to be ignored anymore. Jisoo Park sat in a room full of screens. Each display showed something different. Communication networks, cultural databases, psychological profiles of entire alien civilizations. Most researchers would be overwhelmed. Jisoo was excited. Humans had discovered something powerful, more powerful than any weapon, more dangerous than any technology. Understanding. The Zorn Empire was her current target, a massive civilization that had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. They thought they were unbeatable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Her fingers moved across the interface. Each touch was like playing a complex musical instrument. She wasn't just gathering information. She was creating something. A communication network that could break entire civilizations. The first step was understanding. Really understanding. Not just the words alien species used, but the meaning behind those words. The fears, the hopes, the weaknesses. Every civilization had a story. The Zorn Empire believed in absolute order. They hated chaos. They controlled everything. Perfectly. Jisoo saw this as a massive weakness. A message appeared on one screen. Encrypted. Complex. To most, it would look like random noise. To Jisoo, it was a doorway. She began to work. The communication algorithm she was building was unlike anything in the universe. It wasn't about sending messages. It was about understanding how messages worked, how they created emotions, how they changed thinking. Another screen showed cultural databases, thousands of years of Zorn Empire history. Most would see boring information. Jisoo saw a blueprint. Their communication systems relied on perfect order. No room for mistakes. No room for unexpected things. Humans were about to become very unexpected. The first test message went out. Perfectly designed. Not to attack. Not to destroy. But to create doubt. Small messages. Tiny pieces of information. placed in exactly the right places. Messages that would make the Zorn Empire question everything they knew. Hours passed. The screens around Jisoo continued to show complex data streams. Something was happening. Zorn Empire communication networks began to change. Slowly, carefully. Messages started to conflict. Information became unclear. Leaders began to question their own systems. It wasn't an attack. It was something much more interesting. A complete psychological breakdown. Jisoo watched carefully. Each movement, each communication shift. Everything was planned. The Zorn Empire had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. They thought they were unbeatable. They believed in perfect control. Humans were about to show them how wrong they were. More messages went out, each one carefully designed, not to destroy, but to create confusion, to make the Zorn Empire question everything. Communication systems began to fail, not because of technology, but because of doubt. Leaders began to argue. Systems began to break down. An empire that had seemed solid began to crack, and humans had done it without firing a single weapon. Jisoo leaned back. Her work was done. The screens around her showed a massive civilization falling apart, not through violence, but through understanding. Humans had discovered something powerful, more powerful than any weapon. The ability to make a civilization destroy itself. A final system check completed. The displays showed communication networks breaking down. What looked like a complex attack was actually something much more interesting. A perfect understanding of how civilizations worked. Most would see chaos. Jisoo saw a message. Humans were not going to be ignored anymore. The stars continued to shine. Space remained silent. But everything had changed. The Zorn Empire was about to learn a painful lesson. Humans were much more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The conference room was silent. Hundreds of alien leaders sat around a massive circular table. Holographic displays showed complicated maps of the galaxy. Representatives from every major civilization were present. Min-ji Kim watched from a hidden observation room. She wasn't supposed to be here. But humans were good at being places they weren't supposed to be. Something big was happening. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting. The recent events with the Kyrian Collective and the Zorn Empire had changed everything. Panic was spreading. Fear was growing. Humans had become something else entirely. "We must discuss the human problem," said the Kyrian representative. His voice was cold, angry, afraid. Min-ji smiled. Her latest breakthrough was sitting in a small device no larger than a human thumb. Quantum communication technology that could do something impossible, something that would change everything. The device could tap into any communication network, instantly, completely, with zero detection. Years of work had led to this moment. Humans had been collecting information, learning, understanding, preparing. Now it was time to show the universe what they could do. The holographic displays began to change. Suddenly, every single communication network became visible. Private messages, secret plans, hidden strategies, everything was exposed. The alien leaders began to panic. Min-ji's device was doing something impossible. It wasn't just breaking communication networks. It was understanding them, controlling them, showing everything. Secrets that had been hidden for hundreds of years became public. The Nexus Confederation's secret military plans, the Zorn Empire's hidden weakness points, the Kyrian Collective's true intentions. Everything was now visible. Hundreds of years of galactic politics were falling apart in minutes. The alien leaders looked confused, scared. They had believed they controlled information. They had believed they were powerful. Humans were about to show them how wrong they were. More information appeared. Quantum communication networks opened. Every secret became public. Every hidden plan was exposed. The galaxy was changing. Min-ji continued to watch. Each moment was carefully planned. Each revelation was another weapon. Humans had been collecting information for years, learning, understanding, preparing. Now, they were revealing everything. The Galactic Council's meeting room became chaos. Leaders shouted, screamed, argued. Everything they had built was falling apart, and humans had done it without firing a single weapon. Minji's device continued to work. Communication networks collapsed. Secret plans became public. Hundreds of years of hidden information was now available to everyone. The universe would never be the same. Alien civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years were now exposed. Their secrets, their weaknesses, their true intentions. Everything was changing. The stars outside remained silent. Space continued to exist. But something big was happening. Humans were not going to be ignored anymore. A final system check completed. The holographic displays showed complete communication network collapse. What looked like destruction was actually something much more interesting. Complete transparency. Most would see chaos. Minji saw a message. The universe was about to learn how dangerous humans could be. The conference room continued to fall apart. Alien leaders continued to panic. Communication networks continued to collapse. Humans had discovered something powerful, the ability to show the truth. And the truth was much more dangerous than any weapon. Sung Min Lee stood in the control center. Screens surrounded him, showing every corner of the galaxy. Most would see chaos. He saw a perfect plan. Humans had been preparing for this moment for years. The alien civilizations thought they understood strategy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. It wasn't about military power. It wasn't about weapons. It was about something much more interesting. Total control. The first step was economic. Humans had been studying alien economic systems for years. They knew every weakness, every potential breakpoint. A single command went out. Alien financial networks began to change. Slowly, carefully, not destroyed. Controlled. Trading systems became unstable. Economic connections broke down. Entire galactic markets began to shift. The Kyrian Collective's trading routes redirected. The Zorn Empire's resource networks blocked. The Nexus Confederation's economic connections redirected. No violence. No direct attack. Just pure strategic control. Sung Min's fingers moved across the interface. Each touch was like playing a complex instrument. He wasn't destroying systems. He was controlling them. Entire planetary economies began to change, not collapse. Change. Massive trade routes that had existed for hundreds of years suddenly shifted. Resources moved. Economic power redistributed. Alien civilizations had thought they understood economics. Humans were about to show them how wrong they were. Communication networks continued to be open. Everything was transparent. No more secrets. Planets that had been poor suddenly had resources. Wealthy planets suddenly lost everything. It wasn't random. Every single movement was calculated. The screens around Sung Min showed the entire galaxy shifting. Like a massive chessboard, each move perfectly planned. Most would see chaos. Sung Min saw a strategy. Alien military leaders tried to respond. But how do you fight an enemy that isn't attacking? An enemy that is simply changing everything. Resources moved. Economic power shifted. Communication networks remained completely open. Humans had discovered something powerful. The ability to change everything without firing a single weapon. Hours passed. The galaxy continued to change. Slowly, carefully. Alien civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years were now falling apart, not through violence, through pure strategic control. Sung Min continued to work. Each movement was carefully planned. The first truly global strategy was being implemented. No planet was safe. No economic system was stable. Everything was changing, and humans were in complete control. The stars outside remained silent. Space continued to exist, but something big was happening. Entire civilizations were being restructured. not through war, through understanding. A final system check completed. The displays showed complete economic network redistribution. What looked like destruction was actually something much more interesting. Complete strategic control. Most would see chaos. Some men saw a message. The universe was about to learn how dangerous humans could be. Alien leaders continued to panic. Economic systems continued to shift. Communication networks remained completely open. Humans had discovered something powerful. The ability to change everything. And changing everything was much more dangerous than any weapon. The galaxy would never be the same. Humans were not going to be ignored anymore. The conference room was different now. Where alien leaders once sat in power, they now looked small, broken, confused. Humans had changed everything. No weapons had been fired. No massive battles had been fought. Yet everything was different. The Galactic Council meeting room was now a place of surrender. Not by force, but by understanding. Alien civilizations that had ruled for thousands of years were now sitting quietly, listening, learning. Humans were speaking. "We are not your enemies," said the human representative. Her voice was calm, clear. "We are simply asking for understanding." The Kyrian representative tried to speak, but what could he say? Their entire civilization had been exposed. Their secrets were public. Their strategies were known. Humans had done something impossible. They had conquered the galaxy without violence, without destruction, through pure information, pure strategy. The screens around the room showed everything, every secret, every hidden plan, complete transparency. Alien civilizations had believed they controlled information. They had believed they were powerful. They were wrong. The human strategy had been simple, but perfect. First, understand the enemy completely. Learn their weaknesses, their fears, their hopes. Then, use that understanding to show them a better way. Economic systems had been restructured, not destroyed. Improved. Planets that were poor now had resources. Planets that were rich now shared. Communication networks remained open. No more secrets. No more hidden plans. The Zorn Empire, once the most powerful civilization, now sat quietly. Their perfect order had been broken, not by force, by understanding. The Nexus Confederation looked confused. Their complex political systems had fallen apart. Not through war, through transparency. Humans had discovered something powerful, the ability to change everything by showing the truth. "We are not here to rule," the human representative continued. "We are here to help, to show a better way." Most alien leaders would have laughed before. Now they listened. Years of collecting information, years of learning, years of preparation. Humans had been preparing for this moment forever. The galaxy was changing, not through violence, through understanding. Every civilization had weaknesses. Every system had problems. Humans had found them all, not to destroy, but to improve. The conference room was silent. Alien leaders looked at each other. They had been enemies for thousands of years. Now they were being asked to work together. By humans, the species they had called pests. The species they had ignored. The species that had just changed everything. A final holographic display showed the entire galaxy. Economic networks, communication systems, resource distribution. Everything was different. Most would see chaos. Humans saw opportunity. The stars outside remained silent. Space continued to exist. But something big had happened. Entire civilizations had been restructured. Not through war, through understanding. The human representative continued to speak. Each word was carefully chosen. Each sentence was a weapon more powerful than any ship, more dangerous than any technology. A weapon of truth. Alien civilizations that had fought for thousands of years were now listening, learning, changing. Humans had discovered something powerful, the ability to show a better way. and showing a better way was much more dangerous than any weapon. The galaxy would never be the same. Humans were not going to be ignored anymore. They had been called pests. Now they were the galaxy's most dangerous weapon. Understanding.